Okay, welcome to the Swing Trading with Cycles channel. It is December 26th. So the futures are closed today, but they're going to open tomorrow. And I wanted to take a chance to talk about natural gas, but look at actually some companies that make money off of natural gas, right? So we're going to look at 6 different companies that essentially make most of their profits from natural gas. This is certainly not an exhaustive list, but the idea is to go beyond like your UNG or Boyle in terms of stocks that would rally with natural gas, right? And to be clear, we are in a downtrend. That's why we're starting with the natural gas chart. This is your daily chart. As we've been talking about, we've been making lower lows and lower highs on the daily chart, which means we are in a downtrend. Now, as a reminder, on this channel, we analyze trends because price trends. Price trends. Sometimes it trends up, sometimes it trends down, and knowing the direction it's trending is incredibly helpful because that allows you to get out of the way of the trend if you don't want to be, if you're not able to participate, right? And for most people, that means if it's in a downtrend, you get out of the way because you don't want to be aggressive and get long, because it's always easier to get long it's always easier in an uptrend to get long. In this case, natural gas is in a downtrend on the daily chart. So we had this little rally, which was a lower high to this. And then we had this lower low, this low lower than that low. Then we had this little lower high. And now we have another lower low. So the expectation would be that your next move is a lower high, right? Like a little rally. And then another move lower, right? Another lower high and another lower low. So that's what natural gas is doing. And we can look at the weekly chart really quickly. Again, same idea, and this is even more important, right? Like we made this move up, great. That's a higher high than this, right? Cool. Then we made this move down. What is that? That's a lower low than this, right? And then we made this move up. Well, what's that? That's a lower high. This is your weekly chart, to be clear. And now we've done this. So we haven't quite made this lower low yet. I have to imagine that's going to happen. And then we'll get a bounce. And then maybe this. Or it's totally possible that this becomes the low. And we start a weekly uptrend from that. We'll have to see. But the point is, from where we stand right now, I'll delete this now. But this is your textbook like downtrend. Doesn't mean it's 100% guarantee, because nothing in life is, and certainly nothing in the markets is, right? But that's what you would expect. And then you also have this is your 200-week moving average, this like yellow line here. That is kind of looming below. So that is probably going to get hit at some point. So that's another good sort of mile marker, if you will. And of course, the monthly chart is incredibly red. So that's let me just zoom in on that really quickly. So that's right. I mean, my God, look how red that is. And it's way below the low of last month. And it's really seeking out this low here, that 360. Or, well, in this case, this is the 475 level. Okay. So that's our lay of the land for natural gas itself. Now, what stocks are we going to review? So we're going to start with LNG, that's the ticker symbol, it's Cheniere Energy, right? So let's look at the long-term chart first. This is your yearly chart. Every candle is an entire year of price action, so it gives you a real big picture look. Big picture, we are obviously in an uptrend. We are at all-time highs, right? Like that's important to know about, right? Like we had this like really ugly period here, like massive downtrend. And what year is that? That's like 1980. Wow. So that's going back like really far. So wow. So last year, so this is your 2022 candle. Let me get rid of that. So this is your 2022 candle, and this is your 2021 candle. Again, each candle is an entire year of price action. So last year, we broke out above resistance from 1979. My God, that's epic. If you think about it that way, right? Like that's epic. Interesting. Very interesting, right? So, and we're way above that level. So just to be clear, that high was 94.50, right? And we're here at 108.19. Or excuse me, that level is, yeah, 94.50. So that should read, let's just change that here. 94.50. So, and we're up here at 156. I mean, obviously way above that. So this is a great example of something that is in a long-term uptrend. And that makes sense because you're not betting on you're not just betting on the price of natural gas here. You're also betting on the execution of the team. I mean, look at this like crazy move up since, what is that, 2010, man. 2010, 2011, 2012. Wow. These last few years were kind of feeble, like this little stretch here, but then a nice little swing low. Like, I mean, what year was that? 20. Yeah, right. So that was your COVID year. So this is a story of bottoming COVID year and then starting a big leap forward. So when we think about that in the context of like, let's say a long-term cycle on the monthly chart, right? Because that's how we like to think about these things on this channel. How do we get in early on a very long-term uptrend, right? So that was your COVID low, March 2020, as most things did. Ooh. So that's important to know about. So that is a high on day 32. Or excuse me, sorry. That's a high on month 32, I should say. That's a high at 182.35. And so remember that yearly chart, it looked incredibly bullish, which, I mean, it is on the longest time frames. But when you think about like an intermediate, like, and so just to be clear, in this case, when I think about an intermediate time frame, I mean like the next, call it 12 to 15 weeks. So like 3 to 4 months. This does not look good. Right? This actually has the look. So think about that. This is a furious rally for 32 months. And we just printed a swing high. Right? Swing high is when you go below the low of a candle that marks the high. This candle marks the high at 182.35. And the low for this candle is 158.63. And we're below that right now. 158.63. That's going to be a really important level, right? And now notice you had this like 4-month period. I mean, wow, ugly dojis, and then we resolved that higher. Who knows? This will probably do the same, resolve higher at some point. But think about that. Long-term cycle, 32 months of rally. You're probably going to get at least 5, 6, 7 months of decline. I mean, look at this cycle, right? What's the length on that bad boy? So that is like a So that's like a 4-year cycle. Like a 4-year cycle. So exactly 48 months actually. Interesting. And this is obviously a big major low. Let's say from here to there, it's 34 months. And then from there to there is 51. Yeah, so there you go. So that's like a 3-month period. That's a 4-month period. That's a 4-month period. So is it going to be one of these cycles like this that's closer to 3 years? Like this is 30, right? Or is it going to be something that's closer to 4 years? And of course you have, wow, what a cycle. Look at that. So, I mean, that's really long. That's 83 months in total. So if you think about the smaller subsets of that, there's like that at 30 months. And then that at another 30 months. Interesting. And then that at 24 months. That's interesting, right? So, and that's an important principle to understand. there's always a smaller cycle. There's always a shorter cycle within a longer cycle. That's how it works. Cycles are embedded within each other. So that's really interesting, right? So, and I said we were going to review 6 of these stocks, and I think to do it justice, I'll maybe do one per video. So we'll do this. This one will be for Cheniere Energy, LNG. And so that's interesting, right? So like we could be moving into a situation where we're going to get a short term, like we're going to get a low pretty soon, like maybe in the next 4 or 5 months, or it's something that's going to be more prolonged, right? Like something like out to here. Like that's February 2024. Yikes. Again, as I say many times on this channel, we're not here to predict, right? We're here to review the price action and adjust accordingly. I would say that's the way, that's the best, most profitable way to approach the markets. So, but what this is saying is this long rally, I mean, my God, you had your chance. Again, this rallied for 32 months. That's almost 3 years. So now is probably not the time to jump in, but it means you watch this, and I will be watching it. I'll set some alerts, and I'll certainly give updates on this YouTube channel, and most importantly on Twitter. Take a look at that for a link in the description, because I'll give sort of quick updates. But this is going to be a nice little trade, because if this, like, imagine this becomes a little consolidation point on a halfway mark to another move higher. Now let's just talk about, or think about, just broadly speaking, the quote unquote fundamental case. Where are we at here? So, all right, a little 1% dividend. That's cool. A market cap of 40 billion, or excuse me, let's be precise here, 39 billion, right? 38.77 billion. That's important to know about, because it means, can this thing double, triple, quadruple, right? Because this tells you if it doubled, it would still be less than 80 billion, which, I mean, really, really big picture isn't that huge. So that's helpful to know about. So if we zero in and think about the weekly cycle, because we just talked about the monthly or like the longer term cycle. So we may be in like a something somewhere in between like a 3-year, 4-year cycle. This, like, again, price action works within, like, time periods are nested within each other, right? So understanding what's happening on the weekly level is going to be super important. So this is coming out of COVID, right? That was a very obvious big low. And so we had this weekly cycle that was about 28 weeks. Okay, that's helpful to know about. Right, swing low to swing low. And then we had, wow, this was a long one. So, right, it depends on what you can say that was it. Wow, that was a really long one, 42 weeks. And then this one at 21 weeks. This one at 26 weeks. Ooh, that's interesting. That's really interesting. So this is suggesting it might have just made a weekly cycle low. That would suggest more upside, like, kind of immediately, which is interesting. And of course, this doesn't have to move in the same direction as natural gas itself, because natural gas appears to be in daily cycle decline and also weekly cycle decline. So you would think that would mean a similar thing for these stocks. But again, investors are looking at these in a different way. They're not investing in the price of natural gas. They're investing in these specific companies that benefit from the price of natural gas. But they have more going on, obviously. Again, in this case, Cheniere LNG. So that's really interesting. But all the more importantly, let me zoom back into that. More importantly, we know this whole thing has been a 26-week period. Let's think about, when was the high up here at week 20. So we've basically been declining for 6 weeks, right? So we rallied for 20 weeks. And then we started a decline. Look at this. Like, let's zoom in here. Take auto off so we can, like, zoom into these candles, right? Like, look at that, right? So we made this high, and this is moved. So we made this high here on week 20, and then we had this swing high created by going below this low, and then we tried to rally for 3 weeks. But after getting slightly above this high and not above that one, that next week we got slammed down. And notice this weekly candle takes out all 3 of these weeks of upside. That's an important like pattern to kind of understand. This like these little kind of feeble candles. Like usually the candles are going to be feeble in the opposite direction of the trend, right? So if it's a downtrend, it's going to be feeble, green candles. So that's very interesting. And then we get follow through. Yet here, this looks like exhaustion, right? Where this actually might mark an important little swing low, even if we're going to make lower lows. So that's really interesting. Okay, so we'll leave it at that. Actually, let's zoom into the daily chart, right? Like the daily cycle, and if I'm looking, that's a very clear daily cycle low to that, and then that to that. Interesting. Okay, yeah. Right, this is making sense, right? So this could have been your daily cycle low here. That would have been Thursday, December 22nd. So we maybe literally Monday would be day 2 of a new daily cycle. So that's going to be really interesting. And that's how you triangulate the trade, right? You start at the higher time frames, understand what's happening. Are we green? Are we red? Are we making higher highs, lower lows? And then let's zoom into local action, understand kind of where we stand. So that is really interesting. That could be kind of bullish. And again, knowing that, that's interesting because you could argue, okay, wait, this decline is actually still continuing as opposed to natural gas where we're just kind of in the middle of it. And I guess the argument for it not continuing would be this bullish-ish candle. So I'd say, like, just to be really clear, near-term price action, we really need to get above 158 and like for sure, but getting above 156.5 would be your first kind of clue that we're probably at least going to test 158 kind of area. So that's going to be interesting. So that's LNG stock. We'll release a few more videos with the other names again that are highly levered to natural gas, but not necessarily your UNG or Boyle. That may be even a more long-term play, depending on what the charts tell us. But we'll leave it at that, and thank you for watching.